This video is brought to you by MoviePalette.com. Hey everyone, do you have a favorite movie that you would love to hang on your wall but you can't think of what scene or what poster to get? Well, now you can get the entire movie on one high quality canvas. With MoviePalette.com, you can get every scene from your favorite movie, or more specifically, the dominant color of every scene from your favorite movie in chronological order on a great high quality canvas. It also comes with a silver engraving of the title down at the bottom. It has rubber stoppers on the back to keep it from bouncing. And they have a huge catalog of what to choose from. Whether you're a horror fan, or a fan of sci-fi, Marvel, Japanese anime, Disney animation, drama, or Oscar classics, there's a movie palette for you. And right now, MoviePalette.com is having a sale for 50% off for their Halloween sale. But if you go right now, and if you enter room 15, you'll get 15% off of the movie palette of your choice. That's ROOM15 for 15% off of your movie palette. Again, this is a great value for a great piece of home decor that looks great for any film and for any film buff and anywhere in your home. You will definitely like this product. Mine is of The Shining, and I could not be happier with it. So definitely go to MoviePalette.com and enter ROOM15 for 15% off of your palette. Hey horror fans, welcome back to 1237, back with another review. As I continue my month of October run through of Stephen King films, this is one I wanted to pick up because it's actually one I've never seen before. Of course, I've heard of it. It's a major title. It was one of his earliest adaptations, his earliest handful of books. It came out in 1984, which was right around the beginning of the King boom. We had 3 films in 83. And it's always come up as like a King classic, yet I feel like as far as ones that came out in the 80s, it's one that's one of the least talked about. I mean, everyone talks about Creepshow, Cujo, Christine, Dead Zone, Stand By Me. I think more people talk about Silver Bullet, Maximum Overdrive than they do this. But it's known as one of his big works, and I've actually never seen it. I know a remake came out this year from Blumhouse. Maybe that's something I'll pick up towards the end of the month. But it is the 1984 film, Firestarter. And this is also one that I didn't even know the story of. I just knew it was the young girl, Drew Barrymore, can start fires with her mind. That's all I've ever known about Firestarter. It's also one of the few books I don't own. I used to have a paperback of it. I'm not sure where it is. It might have been left at my parents' house. But it's not one that I have in my collection now. It's a book I've never read. There was also a TV sequel that came out in 2002. That I saw. I saw that when it first aired on TV. I remember it sucking. I remember it being really bad. Not Rage Carrie too bad, but still pointless. And it's not that I'm mixed on it, it's just I don't really know what to say about it. It's very different for a King film, especially at this time. I mean, yeah, it has the supernatural elements, the girl with pyrokinesis, that sort of juxtaposition of this cute, angelic young girl possessing this great power. It does have a great cast. It has a very solid cast. Unfortunately, either they're hamming it up or they're not used, which is a shame. It's not badly directed. It's directed fine. Some of the effects are very dated, more so the optical effects. Oh, the pyro effects look really cool, especially when you have trails of fire chasing after people. it has been compared to, and understandably so, Carrie. Especially when you think of, a young girl with some sort of psychokinetic power, and then considering the climax where she just gets revenge on everyone that's been pushing her the whole film. Although I would say, with obviously Carrie is a far superior film. And no pun intended, it is a slow burn, but it's still a horror film, definitely, but it's not your typical King film, at least not that I think. Uh, it is more of, government secret projects, experiments going on, father and daughter on the run. They're followed, they're sought after, they get captured, get tested on, try to break out, and then hell breaks loose. Kind of that story. I mean, almost like if you take uh, like a pyro Carrie and sort of like the whole uh, government coming to get you and testing on you aspect of like E.T. That's kind of what you get. Um, I will say I did like the chemistry between Drew Barrymore and the guy that played her dad, uh, David Keith. I keep wanting to say Keith David. No. Although Keith David would have been awesome in this. And their chemistry is really one of the things that would have made or broke this film. Because you really do have to. It does need to sell the idea that it is them against the world. And I do think the chemistry was well done. Now, it was directed by Mark Lester, who. Mark L. Lester. I'm not sure what else this guy has done. Uh, Roller Boogie, Class of '84, Commando, Armed and Dangerous, Showdown in Little Tokyo. So he's done a number of action films, which definitely shows. Um, Nothing else I've seen. He was executive producer on the slasher film The Funhouse. Okay. Direct-to-video Public Enemies, '96. TV movies, Pterodactyl, Yeti, Sinbad and the Minotaur. Well, so in the '80s and '90s, he did a number of action films. That's very evident. It does look like someone who knows action, but doing a more slower burn type film. Screenplay was by Stanley Mann. Stars David Keith, who I know I've seen him in other things. He looks super familiar. Officer and a Gentleman, Independence Day. Oh, 1983 Independence Day. That's a different film. Ernest Goes to School. Well, it's been over 20 years since I've seen that. Hangman's Curse. Yeah, haven't seen that since 2003. Anyway, he did fine, but also stars Drew Barrymore, which she does fine as well. It's not an E.T. role. She's not as good as she was in E.T. I mean, she is adorable, like she was in everything when she was young, and I do think that helps. She can be a little over the top at some parts. I think she did really well with the climax of the film, which thankfully they went the Carrie route with just her just kind of standing there and just kind of. She's not doing the theatrics that like 2013 Carrie did, which I would put it past the new Blumhouse readaptation doing, where when she sets fire, she's not like not doing like a Mortal Kombat shit. She's just kind of walking and staring. that makes it more effective. George C. Scott is our main antagonist, and he's hamming it up. He's having fun. He definitely did fine as the villain, but I really like George C. Scott. Loved him in The Changeling. He's in my favorite version of Christmas Carol. Exorcist 3. Then you got Martin Sheen as sort of our secondary antagonist. He's the president of. Well, I don't know if he's the president, or the captain of this government division of scientific intelligence or whatever. And of course, Martin Sheen, whenever he plays that kind of character, like a president or like a executive or CEO that's a bad guy, he always does it well. He does fine here. Heather Locklear is in like 2 or 3 short scenes as Drew Barrymore's mom. Art Carney, Moses Gunn, and the biggest disappointment, Louise Fletcher. Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, one of my favorite performances by an actress, one of my favorite female villains. She's in like 2 or 3 short scenes as well. I don't even think she has any lines. I actually did not realize it was her when she was first on screen. Then she disappears and comes back in the last scene. And that, when I finally recognized her, I was like, oh wait, yeah, she was supposed to be in this. So that was pretty disappointing. This was offered to John Carpenter. He was supposed to do this, which the score done by Tangerine Dream does have a very Carpenter-esque score. It's like if you take 80s synth and John Carpenter, earlier Carpenter, you get this score. I do think the score is one of the better parts of the film. And cinematography by Giuseppe Ruzzolini, which I know I've seen that name. There actually are a number of Italian crew members. Maybe it's because it's put out by Dino De Laurentiis's company. But you know, he worked on Short Night of Glass Dolls, one of my favorite gialli. Firestarter. I thought I'd seen more films than that, but so yeah, it was supposed to be a John Carpenter film, but the failure of The Thing, he opted out of Firestarter because there was another film, another adaptation by another author that he was gonna do, but with the failure of The Thing, I think it was taken away from him, or he declined. He hired someone else to do it. Originally, he's supposed to have Richard Dreyfuss as the dad. I wonder what that would have been like. Universal replaced Carpenter after The Thing failed. And anyway, so yeah. Yeah, I'm pausing because I don't really know what to say about it. I mean, it's a decent film. It it just feels like all the best parts of it were either going towards cheese and over the top and kind of hamming it up, or just super underutilized. It really is kind of like Carrie in a sense, where and throughout the first act we're kind of told the story through flashbacks or dreams that are flashbacks, where David Keith and Heather Locklear, college students, they volunteered for this government experiment where they're given this drug called Lot 6. Everyone else had horrible side effects. They develop powers. where she can read minds. He can, you know, force people to do things, except it gives them headaches and a nosebleed, so it limits how much he can do it. They have a daughter named Charlene, who they call Charlie. That's Drew Barrymore. And she has the ability of pyrokinesis. And it's throughout several flashbacks. Like one day he comes home, his wife is dead, she's being abducted by these suits, but he's able to get her back. And the first act, they're just on the run. There's just these people following them. And I do like the arc of how she doesn't know how to use her powers or know how to control them. Like, one scene at the airport, this one soldier's yelling at his pregnant girlfriend, being a dickhead to her. She's getting pissed and just his boots light up, but she doesn't know how to stop it. And I do like the idea of how when they're finally captured and they're making her do all this stuff, and she does perfect her powers, then they come out and say, well, we can't let her go now. She's way too dangerous. And I like the line by David Keith when he's like, yeah, and who made her dangerous? It's like, you take this person that can be a weapon but doesn't know how to use it, you teach them how to use it, and now they're dangerous. George C. Scott plays this sort of, not really a bounty hunter. He's the exterminator of this organization. He wants Charlie for himself, and you find out how or why. It doesn't quite make sense. I think we're just supposed to believe he's crazy, like he's gone insane. It is because he wants to get close to her, be trusted, have her really look up to him, and then just hurt her in such a way that she'll unleash her powers. And if it kills him, he hopes he'll take it with him either in the afterlife or the next life. That's what I got from it. It doesn't make sense, but I don't think it's supposed to. This is one of those movies where the book is probably way better because books always flesh these things out more. Which also, when it comes to the escape of this government place, it's incredibly easy. I mean, there's still a big showdown, but the pieces to getting that to happen is incredibly easy. And that's why I'm thinking maybe there's more to the book. Which, I did read that King, like most adaptations back then, was not a fan of this. He even said at one point that this was the worst of the bunch, or one of the worst. And this came out after The Shining, which he notoriously hated. And really, the only parts that I found to be kind of interesting or suspenseful is sort of how George C. Scott plans on getting close to her. Because it's not a government facility like the Pentagon or something. It's like this big colonial mansion out in the middle of nowhere. And they have David Keith in one room. They're giving him pills that will suppress his powers. He figures that out, so he stops taking them. And then they put her in another room with toys, a ColecoVision. And George C. Scott acts like an orderly. He acts like a maid or whatever. He comes in to clean. One time he has it so the power goes out. He acts like he's afraid of the dark because of things in Vietnam, making her feel sorry for him. But then he takes her out to, go horseback riding. He even has a horse named Necromancer, which, okay. And he's really just trying to get close to her as a trusted friend, to the point where, and this was really the only part I found kind of suspenseful, is when David Keith gains his powers back, and he just Martin Sheen to, because they want to send him to a different facility in Maui. So, like, you're going to tell them I'm not alone. My daughter's going to be coming with me. Okay, yeah, sure. And I want you to give this note to her that says, we're getting out of here. At 8 o'clock, you're going to meet me at the stables. Because pretty much the whole end of the second act into the third act, they're separated at this facility, just wanting to see each other. So she gets this note, and she's so excited that she tells George C. Scott, her trusted friend. So this plan's going to go bad because, he's playing her. And so that was really the only part I found any kind of suspenseful. But I did find myself continuously interested throughout the film. It's not that I found it boring. It was less interesting than some other slower King films. But I think the chemistry between father and daughter, the competent directing, the score, and just ultimately seeing where she goes with her powers and what this organization wants, it was enough to keep me at the very least hooked. And yeah, just that climax felt super easy to escape this place because they're out in the stables. There is a scene where, because after she tells George C. Scott, like, I'm so happy I'm going to see my dad. Because earlier he tells Sheen that just when she's at her happiest, he's going to strike her in the face to break her nose. And she's going to look at me with all the hatred and unleash her fullest potential. And hopefully kill me, and I'll take powers and all that shit. So just when she says how happy she is that she's going to see her dad, you see him just kind of getting ready. Then someone comes in. So again, that's really the only scene that I found to be kind of suspenseful. But then they get up to the stables, and that's when it's revealed to Charlie that, the kind orderly's not her friend. He's an agent. He's behind everything. And you kind of get a little showdown there with some shots and some mind powers, some cool Firestarter effects. But to think all he had to do was brainwash Martin Sheen and he would have been able to go, it seemed a little too easy. But then you got the whole organization outside the stables, and that's when she just has her Carrie climax. Because if you think about it, she's been chased by these people for the first act. Second act, she's not allowed to see her dad. She's put in this experiment room, constantly told, try, keep doing it. That she's finally getting to unleash on everyone. And the whole arc of how she doesn't like to use her powers because it's bad. She feels she hurt her mother because there was a flashback where she didn't want to go to bed. She yelled. Heather Locklear's oven mitts lit up. So she never wants to use her powers. But then, spoiler alert, George C. Scott shoots David Keith, and as he's dying, which also I did find this shot to be suspenseful. George C. Scott's hiding up in the loft, trying to tell Charlie to come up. She's down there. As soon as David Keith walks in, she sees him and runs in slow motion with like the biggest smile you've ever seen. And I thought it was going to be in slow motion because I thought that's when George C. Scott was going to shoot him, and then that was going to be the betrayal that tips her off. It didn't go that route, but that had me kind of, ooh, something bad's going to happen. And so as he's dying, he says, I want you to get away as far as you can, if you can. And if you have to kill anyone to get away, I want you to do it. So then you just have the Carrie climax where she's standing outside this farmhouse, just letting everyone have it. Which, it's not like there's a lot of scenes with this. I mean, there's the soldier at the airport. There's the first farmhouse. They're hitchhiking. There's the husband and wife, Art Carney and Louise Fletcher, where they're hiding out. Everyone shows up. And at first, people just kind of burst into flames, which happens here as well. But now you got like huge fireballs shooting at people. You got like these 3 trails of fire just chasing after people across the ground. I thought that looked really cool. You got fireballs taking out helicopters. You got guys just bursting it. Well, one guy gets hit with a fireball, but it launches him way up into the trees, engulfed in flames. And again, I appreciate how she's just, she's not doing this theatrical stuff. And yet, every time it shows her doing it, even in the experimental rooms where she just sets objects on fire, it does kind of do some typical stuff. Like it kind of gets really cinematic looking, zooms in, you see her hair blowing. It'll be up close of her eyes or up close of her fist clenching. But the score for that part was probably the most Carpenter-esque part of the score. It was during the climax. After everyone's dead, she's just dropped off back at Art Carney, Louise Fletcher's house. And then it ends with Art Carney taking her to the New York Times so she can tell them about the shop. Because there was this, when they were on the run hiding, David Keith was supposed to be writing these letters to the New York Times exposing the secrets of the shop. But they were spotted. George C. Scott was able to get the mailbag. So it ends with her at the New York Times finally spilling it. And obviously, for me, what really needed to work was the chemistry between father and daughter. Believing that this guy would do anything for his daughter, which I did. Really buying and liking this young girl, which I did. Because she very much could have been like the daughter in another Stephen King film that I'll get to. I'll just say Pet Sematary. Could have been like the daughter from the 89 Pet Sematary, where she's just grating and annoying. But here, she's not only is just young Drew Barrymore just adorable in everything she's in, and very angelic looking, but you buy that she doesn't want to be bad, she doesn't want to hurt people, and just her half of the chemistry with David Keith really worked. So that for me is the most important part, and I think they nailed that. Also, good villains, Martin Sheen, George C. Scott. I think Martin Sheen did fine. George C. Scott was really playing it up and having fun, which, I mean, the whole idea of him being crazy, I guess that makes sense. It is building towards something, like Carrie. It is slower. You get hints or spurts of her powers, but this girl's just pushed to the limit, then finally just unleashes. Again, Carrie's far superior. I can see why this has been compared to Carrie. This did not get very good reviews when it first came out. I think this is seen more as like a cult film. But certainly from the 80s, this is definitely one of the less or least talked about ones. But as far as direction goes, it is very competently directed. It looked fine. Camera work was decent. Some of the optical effects are kind of dated, like how she can deflect bullets or even stop a bullet and have it explode. Some of those look a little dated, or when George C. Scott just kills one guy by punching him in the face. It goes from like a punched in rubber dummy to George C. Scott to just a guy with a bloody nose. It's far from the worst, but it's also far from the best. It's just one that ultimately I'm mixed on. I would say more of me liked it. There's more that I liked than disliked. Just feel like it might have been missing a lot. Like, I feel like the book really has a lot more to help flesh this story out. But that's the original Firestarter. Maybe at some point I'll get to the new Blumhouse one. I've heard nothing but terrible things, which that's par for the course. Well, actually, no, people love Blumhouse films because modern audiences just eat up jump scares and cheap films. But maybe I'll check that out this month. But I do have more Stephen King films. I did order another copy of Lamb, so when that comes in, hopefully I'll be able to watch and review that. So stay tuned for those, and thank you for watching.